everyone. I know we are getting connected here. I'm so excited for our live tonight. I know we're not officially started yet. Oh, perfect. Hello, Self-Love Jungle. It's great to see you. We are going to have an awesome live. Perfect. Kendra is here. Oops, I've got to get her to join. Okay, Kendra, let's see. Oh, my nose itches. Oh, here we go. Okay, we're just getting connected.
Hi.
Hi.
We got the blue shirt matching.
I know. I am so excited. I cannot tell you how pumped I am for this conversation.
Good, me too.
I see people are joining us. So as people are joining, I just want to give everyone a little bit of background about you. So Kendra started BreakUpBestie as an Instagram account, blog, and then now has it as an online course. Her aim is to leverage her own experience from toxic, controlling, abusive, and codependent relationships to help others through not just surviving, but thriving through their own breakups. Personally, I have found all of her information extremely helpful when I broke up with a toxic employer and found freedom in starting my own business. And also, as a side note, you have like amazing style. And so even though that's not necessarily like within the umbrella of what I want to cover, I also kind of want to cover like your style is adorable, and everyone needs to check out your website, which we'll link in all of the details. So welcome, Kendra.
Thank you so much for having me. And that's the nicest compliment. I don't think I've ever gotten that style compliment, but actually we can talk about it because I can totally trace it back to relationships and breakups too.
Yes. So I'm so interested. So even though I know I explained your background and all of this, do you have like, how did you get into this to be able to, because for me with women, when they're really struggling, it's, I have to do a lot of work to keep myself grounded. So I'm interested, it's one thing to have this experience, but also to be able to navigate and have such an amazing full offering for people. How did you do this?
Yeah, it started super slowly. So I went through like I've always struggled in relationships to start off. So I've always struggled with that. And then I went through like the breakup to end all breakup, like the breakup of all breakups. Actually, Sunday's the 5-year anniversary. I like still will never forget the date.
Right.
So I went through that breakup, and I had been through like really bad breakups in the past, but I, in my opinion, just had never dealt with them in like a way that was like intentional. And so finally this one 5 years ago, another part of my story is I've been sober for almost 7.5 years. So this was like one of my, thank you. So this was one of like the first breakups that I went through totally sober. And so I was like, okay, I want to tackle this in a way that's like intentional, where I'm not going to be dealing with it years down the road. Cause that was like my MO. I would go through a breakup and then like jump into something that was like just going to make me feel better. So it was the first time where I was like really intentional about how I was going to go through this breakup. So I did like literally I asked like random women that I like barely knew to coffee, be like, how do I do this? And so I ended up gathering like all of these tools and like writing exercises and just all this stuff. And then I started having like friends of friends come to me for breakup advice. And about like probably mid 2017, I was going through a big career change, and I had had entrepreneurial kind of things in the past. And my now husband was asking me like, what do you really like to do? And I was like, I really enjoy helping women with their breakups. And so that sparked a Google search. And what struck me was like, for how hard breakups are, and for literally everyone goes through one, there
Mm-hmm.
was so little information online about like how to do it, you
Right.
know? And like I compare it now, like we pay for so much stuff to help us. Like we pay nutritionists, we pay trainers, like we pay business coaches, life coaches. But there was just, I just saw this huge gap for breakup advice. And
Mm-hmm.
especially, I think the like intentional breakup recovery. There was a
Yes.
lot of like, how do you get your ex back? Like, there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
dating coaches. There's a lot of like people that will help you get into new relationships, but there just wasn't a lot of like advice out there on how do you like really intentionally recover from a
Right.
breakup, because I really think breakups are this amazing opportunity that we have to get to know ourselves again. Like it's this, I mean, as someone who went through like getting sober, that was like a rock bottom that I
Mm-hmm.
hit. And so I made all these changes because typically we're only motivated by extreme pain. So it's like
Yes.
we don't get that many opportunities where we're in
Yes.
so much pain to like take these steps to like grow and change and like make adjustments and learn
Mhm.
lessons. So I just thought like a breakup's such a great opportunity for that. And there's just not a lot out there
Right.
for advice in that way. So I started as an Instagram account. I literally didn't tell anyone. Like some of my best friends didn't even know I had started this account. Like I didn't show my face on it. And then I was like, okay, if this works, like if people like this, we'll see where it goes.
Right.
And so then I was like, okay. And then I started writing. So I started doing the blog. And
Mhm.
then, I mean, it took me, I started the Instagram account like New Year's 2018.
Mhm.
And it took me like 2 years to do the course. So it's kind of been
Wow.
something that's been like, it started off as like a total side hustle, just like
Mhm.
almost like a hobby, and then
Mhm.
it morphed into a business. So it was slow, but
Mhm.
the course was always something that like was like one of the end goals for it.
Right. And I think it's so interesting. So, I've been through a divorce, and there are all of these there are like divorce books out there, but many of them are like religiously oriented, which doesn't necessarily connect with me. And then the other piece was like, there's either like people who want to like hate the person that you broke up with, or people who like just want you to be sad. And I'm kind of a person where, I like to like get busy, you know? So it's like, I want, like you were saying, you would go on to the next thing. And my thing was always like, okay, well, I want to do something, and it's hard to find the right avenue to kind of put your efforts towards. And so I've really enjoyed, like I said, your content, because I wasn't aware of it. I went through my divorce coming up on like 5 years now, but now it was like, just in getting to know you and following your content, I think it has so many applications, which is so cool.
Yeah, thank you. And I think the reason that is
Mm-hmm.
because I do have people work on their feelings towards their ex, but 98% of what I teach is all inward. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't really, I try to stop people when they get into these like venting sessions about their ex. And I'm like, it doesn't really matter what they're doing. Like,
Right.
as hard as, because you know, it's like you see your ex like getting into a new relationship or they look super happy. And it's like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And I tell people like your energy is so precious when you're going through a breakup because you're emotionally exhausted. Like you constantly wake up feeling like you have a hangover, even if you haven't drank. So like every ounce of energy you're putting towards like what your ex is doing, what are they thinking, what are they feeling, like do I need to check up on them? I call it like playing the investigator on their social
Yep.
media. It's like, no, we need to turn that all inward because we are the ones that need the healing. Like,
Right.
and I get it, people want to try to control the ex, control the outcome, but at the end of the day, like it has to just turn inward.
Right. And okay, so here's a question that came up through Instagram, but also I've had a few friends that have been in this situation. And it was interesting when I said that I was having you on and your background and all that, because we booked this a while ago. I've had people who, I don't know if it's because it's COVID, but they're like realizing, like, I don't know that this is the person I want to be with, but I'm like kind of like afraid to take that next step, or like I think I want to break up. And I've seen some people, again because of this pandemic, it's like I don't think I want to be with you. But then it's like that other person can't just easily leave, or it's hard to get together with girlfriends. So then they were like, oh, now we're back together again. And then,
Yeah.
oh, no, now we're not. And I don't know if it's like what it is, but I've had a whole slew of people who they're like, I'm teeter-tottering. So do you have any recommendations for teeter-totterers?
Yeah. And it's interesting. I do think the like quarantine and that whole situation has definitely made it worse. But I think it comes back to the theme of like people teeter-totter out of comfort a lot because any way you slice it, a breakup's really uncomfortable. If you're the one getting dumped or if you were the one breaking up. And I remember like the first time I had to break up with someone, I was like, I wish I was the one getting dumped because it's like sometimes it's so much harder to be the one that's like has to be the bad guy.
Yes.
So I think a lot of it has to do with like you just really have to like be okay being uncomfortable with the whole situation because ending a relationship, I think in a lot of ways is a really traumatic experience.
Yeah.
And we don't really treat it that way. So it's like your whole life is going to feel off. It's like, I mean, it's mourning the death of someone who's still alive. They're just
Yes.
like they died out of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's hard, especially like now if you have to like move out and there's a lot of like situations like that. But I do think like there's always a way to make it work, whether that is like, you do have to like go stay with family for a little bit. And so I think most people teeter-totter out of comfort. And that's typically why people will break up for a week and then they get back together.
Yes.
And then they'll be together, which I've totally done. And then they're together for like 3 weeks and they realize, wait, we broke up for a reason and they break up.
Yes.
It's like there's like this vicious cycle that people fall into of breaking up and getting back together. So I'd say, I tell people, like, I had a question come in the other day when someone says, like, how do you know if a relationship needs to end? And it's like, it's hard to answer. I'm like, I don't know your relationship,
Right.
but it's like just a gut thing. Like, if you really think like your relationship's not working, it probably isn't. All relationships are hard, but if you like every day you're thinking like this doesn't feel right, then I think it is time to like step away. And I think it's literally just surrendering to the fact that like you have to be okay being uncomfortable for a little while and it's going to get better. But the more you like keep going back, it's just the harder, because we've all had friends or have been the friends that like you never like, are so and so together, are they not, like you just don't know because they're constantly doing the back and forth.
Yes.
So I think a lot of it's just like, you just got to be okay letting it go.
Right. And have you ever, so with your online course, is it something that like the first of the year it starts and then then you maybe you do like 4 courses a year, or is it like rolling admission?
Yeah, so right now it's rolling admission. I do think in the pretty near future, I'm going to do more of like a group coaching one where it is on a timeline. But for now, like you could pick it up at any time. It's go at your own pace, because it is structured in a way that like I tell people, don't move on until you feel like you've really like addressed certain things. So, but it literally starts with like the first module is called triage. So it's like, let's just get you like okay, like let's get you okay to like function in the world. And then we'll and then we dig deep, like as the course goes on, it digs deeper into different layers. But yeah, people, and I tell people like, you could take this course if your breakup happened yesterday. You could take this course if your breakup happened 5 years ago and you just have never quite dealt with it. Because I think
awesome.
I think that happens a lot too. And that happened with me, where I was finding myself having to process breakups that happened years ago.
Right. So, and I think that's something good, at least for my friends in my community, of like, so if you are in that teeter-totter place, you have a very robust blog, you've got your podcast. So these are all ways that you can start to engage with your work and with you as a person, besides for Instagram, of course. And then as you start to process and see, gosh, maybe it really does seem like, this is a breakup, or we've already kind of broken up emotionally, but we're still in the same space, then go ahead and you can almost have that course ready and purchased and prepared. I'm a kind of a preparer. So that would be me, where I would be like, okay, I've researched, I've done it all. I have this thing that I know can hold me, and help me through this super challenging time.
Yeah, I think if you were going to be the one that breaks up with someone, you should be prepared. Like you should have like, who are you going to call? Like who knows about this already? Because the last time I got dumped, even like I kind of knew it was coming. Like we were having the talk. So like I had friends that knew, and I literally was like, it happened. And then a friend like drove over and was like there, like my ex was pulling out and like she pulled in. So I think if you sense you're going to go through a breakup or you're planning to do a breakup, I think having certain preparations in place is a good idea, because then you're less likely to have to like go seek comfort from your ex.
And so the other thing that has been really cool in watching your content, and your content that you're like sharing as we speak today, I was watching your stories, and then what you're telling me now, and sharing through all of your platforms, is this amazing support system you have. Like, I was so taken aback because I have really struggled with kind of finding my support system, feeling okay, and letting my friends see. I'm always a fixer. I was just on the phone last night with a friend, and we were laughing, and she's like, said like, she does a very good job of being like, whoa, this is dysfunctional, I'm setting up a boundary. Whereas I'm like, let's tighten up our bootstraps, people, and dig in, you know? And so I was so amazed how you have always talked about, as I've followed you now through the years, but especially in these last few days, I'm like, damn, she does such a good job of reaching out. So like, how have you processed or worked to be able to ask for help? Because I know I have so many friends that are like, as an adult human, it is hard to make good relationships with people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. And it is like, that's the very first thing in my course is like, you gotta at least like rally the people that are in, I call it, I heard this term, your picket fence. So basically like you're a picket in a fence, and if one picket falls, if you have a fence, like it doesn't fall down, you know?
That's
so
cool.
That's like the number one thing in my course that I'm like, you have to just get that into place. And I do think it's really hard to make friends as an adult. So I'm really lucky that when I got sober, I like fell into this really awesome support system. Like I found this opportunity to make friends in that community. But I've also, you know, made like, I tell people like, go make friends doing things you like to do, which I know is really hard right now. But like when you're going to like the gym that you like go a little early. And again, it's going to come back to like, you have to be okay being uncomfortable. Like I call it like the awkward first girl date. Like if you like, it's like a girl and you are like vibing at like the yoga studio, be like, hey, would you want to get coffee or go for a walk sometime? It's so awkward, but like people appreciate it, because I think we always crave connection. So you have to put yourself out there, almost like dating. And, you know, so many of like my really close friends are ones where I was like, you know, I like was like, hey, I'm going to go to this. Do you want to come with me? Like putting myself out there. So I think that's really important. And then when it comes to asking for help, take baby steps. And I think I'm really lucky. My dad's mom, who I actually never met, she passed away before I was born, but he always used to tell me, your Nana would say the best way to make a friend is to ask for a favor or share a secret. So it's like but both come down to vulnerability, you know? So, so I think you can just start by saying like, hey, this is what's going on. You have to get like, be okay when someone says, how are you? Like, don't just say good if you're not doing good. You can say like, you know what, actually, like I'm having a really tough day. I'm struggling with this. And I think this is a great place where texting's awesome, because you can like, it doesn't have to be in person. It's less intimidating, but you can just say like, hey, I'm like really struggling. Would you mind like hopping on the phone with me or doing something like that? So you're not even necessarily asking for help. You're just getting vulnerable and saying what's going on with you. And then you can see how the other person responds. But 9 times out of 10, like people who love each other, people like to help others. They like feeling useful. So, so I think just start with like small baby steps, and then you
Mm-hmm.
can work your way up to like, hey, I really need this. I'm also like the fixer. I love being the helper. So for me to like have to be the one that asks for help, it's definitely, it's still tough, but I just know, I like know the reward so much
Mm-hmm.
that I don't want to like struggle in silence
Yes.
anymore. And I think you also really need to discern with like who is safe to go to, and asking, like, I'll call a friend and say like, hey, is it okay if I vent? That way I'm
Mm,
like, hey, you, if they don't have the emotional capacity to handle like a venting session, they can say that and they know it's safe to say that. So I think it's really just like developing those relationships where you feel
yeah.
like it's a safe place where they can say no if they can't handle it at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard and it's going to be a learning process, but it's literally like that's been what has held me up through like everything tough
Right.
in my life, is like having that support system.
Right. And I tend to be the person that makes friends because I like kind of turn into a stalker. So I'll be like, my favorite thing is, and what I have been known for, several of my very close friends, I have emailed them and I have said, would you be available to get together sometime for coffee, lunch, a drink, or a walk? Because it's like literally, like, if drinking isn't your thing, that's fine. I got,
Hmm.
or I said, what did I say? I would say coffee, tea, a drink, or a walk. Because then I was like, I got you with coffee. If you're not a coffee person, I got you with tea. If you're neither of those, I got you with a drink. If you're none of those, oh, I got you on a walk. And
Yeah.
so it's like literally they had no choice to say yes. And so one of my friends that I was seeing in Utah this winter, she's like, man, my wife and I are having such a hard time making friends. What do we need to do? And then she was like, I was wondering, like, how did we become friends? And I was like, oh, I got you in my eyesight. And then it was like stalker mode. Um, but like you said, it can be challenging. It can be hard being vulnerable. And so it's, again, such a nice thing to see with your account that you keep saying that. And it's interesting when I share on my Instagram account things that I'm like feeling like, oh, I'm so nervous to share. And then I share them. It's amazing the response I get back because people are like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling this. Like, I'm going through that. I'm going through that. And it's like the times where I'm like the least perfect is where I get the most connection.
No, absolutely. And I think anytime, I think people love vulnerability, they're always drawn to it. So anytime I've done a post where I've like shared something personal, I've always gotten a great response. And
Mm-hmm.
another thing I was going to say about having good friends, I really think that to have good friends, you have to be a good friend. So it's like,
Heard you say that before.
yeah, I show up to birthday parties. Like if my friend has like a big thing in her life, like I go.
Mm-hmm.
And and what that does for me is when I get nervous to ask a friend for help, I'm like, you know what? I feel comfortable because I have like, I think it's 7 habits of highly effective people,
Mm-hmm.
but they talk about like the bank account. Like you got to put deposits in, otherwise you're not going to feel comfortable taking out a withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really important that you do have to like be a good friend to have good friends. And
Right.
yeah, so I
So
think that's
as
another.
you go through, I know we've covered like a lot of the stuff that's in the beginning of the Breakup Bestie course. How about like at the end? Because sometimes what I have found is when I've gotten a lot of support, or maybe I'm reading a book, or I found like I went to a divorce support group and it kind of came time to like the end of it, it was like kind of scary sometimes because it's like, oh, I have this thing. Like it's, I like will carry books around like they're talismans or something. And it's
Yeah.
like, why do you have so many books with you? You're not even reading that book. And I'm like, Brene Brown is that for me a lot of times. And I'm like, but I have it. I have her here in this book.
Yeah.
And people are like, okay. So yeah. So how do you like those kind of final things to sort of hold people?
Yeah, so I, the way I end the course is helping them feel prepared to move forward into new relationships. And I always say, like, just because you're doing this doesn't mean you're ready to start dating. But I want you to take everything that you've learned and because I think what happens a lot is people repeat the same relationship over and over again, just with a different name. So I make sure that, like, I think the best time to know what you want in a relationship is when you're single. Because if you try, like, if you're not firm on what you want and like your non-negotiables and like the red flags, the second your body's like full of like all the fun chemicals from a crush, you're like, I don't care. Like,
right.
You know, and that happened to me so many times where I share, like, I've got dumped 3 times in a row because the guy didn't want to get married or have kids. Most of the time I knew early on, and I'm like, oh, I don't care, you know,
Right.
because I wasn't like really firm on like my self-worth and what I really wanted and my boundaries. So I have them like do a few exercises where they get really clear on what they want, not just like what they want in the other person, but like how do they want to show up in a relationship. So I think that's what is like the good kind of like tie it all together is like, how are you going to move forward with all this new information, and how are you going to like prevent the same mistakes from happening again? I think that's like a big thing that people, when they don't like take the time to really reflect on a relationship, they tend to make the same things happen over and over again. And then I find that like I have people following me like well past their breakup just for like reminders on like what is a good what does a healthy relationship look like? How can I show up like that? So that's kind of how I tie it all together is like I really want them to feel confident going into a new, because I think a lot of people come to me and they say, I'm really scared this is going to happen again. Like, I'm really scared that I'm going to get into the same thing over again. It's like, how do we make sure that doesn't happen?
Right. I really, really like that. And I love that focus on self, you know, whether it's like you were saying, like, how do you want to show up? And as women, I feel like oftentimes it's like, how can we support other people? How can we make them feel okay? How can we, you know, be loud, but then also be quiet, be sexy, but not too sexy.
Yeah.
You know, like, be smart, but not too smart, but don't let them walk all over you. And it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think another thing too is like, I spent so much of my life, and this ties back to how I dress. I spent so much of my life as a chameleon where like, I just didn't have a strong sense of self. And I saw a question further up where someone asked, why is codependency bad? And this is kind of getting into it. So when I didn't have a strong sense of self, any relationship I got into, one, I like didn't really care what kind of relationship I got into. It was kind of like, someone likes me, someone's validating me. So like, okay, great. I'm here. Like, I'll be in a relationship. And then I would literally like change everything about my life to like match this person. Like, I remember I cleaned my closet out after like a long period of time, and I could literally tell like who I was with when I bought each thing, because it was so to like fit in. Like, I dated like a skateboard snowboard guy, and I would like dress like in all surfer clothes. And so I literally like would tailor my entire life. And so by getting really firm in who I am by myself, then when I got into a relationship, like I wasn't like susceptible to falling into that same thing, because I'm like, I really like my life totally on my own. So if you're going to come into my life, you better elevate my life instead of like, you know, I talk about this on my Instagram, but like, I don't like that whole saying of like, I want to find my other half. It's like, no, I think a healthy relationship is 2 whole and complete people coming together to form a partnership. And I think that's why codependency can be a bad thing, because you just get lost in the other person. And then when that happens, like if the guy is pissed, my life is like over for that day, because I have to do everything I can to make him happy, because if I lose him, then like I lose myself, I lose my whole life. So that way, like all of your emotions are going to be tied to them. All of your feelings about yourself are going to be tied to like if they're validating you, if they're complimenting you. So by getting really firm in who you are single, that way you can like step into a relationship very secure in who you are with your own self-worth.
So how did you meet your husband? Because I know I have a lot of friends and I've had fear in stepping into that true self, holding that space, letting my boyfriend and I have had conversations where he's like, it's so weird. Like, you don't need me to be happy. Like, you don't need me for anything. You don't need me to clean. You don't need me to cook. You are completely self-sufficient. And like, he's like, it's so bizarre because I thought it was going to be this other way. So,
Yeah.
so I know I've personally had fear and kind of, I always call it standing in my power. And I know other people have had that too, where it's like, if I really reveal my full self, and then if I really have a voice to back it up, that then no one will love me. And so, so how did you and your husband meet, or how did you kind of, maybe not even your husband, but siphon through some of these other people to realize yay or nay?
Yeah, so my husband and I actually have a really like interesting story, and I'm gonna preface this by saying like we are so the exception to the rule in this because the breakup I went through 5 years ago was with my husband. He
Oh,
dumped me
interesting.
5 years ago,
Uh-huh.
and when I say we broke up, we like broke up. We did
Mm-hmm.
not talk, we did not see each other,
Mm-hmm.
nothing, like no social media for a year and a half.
Wow.
So we like completely broke up. I was like in a new relationship, like I was dating. I had gone through all this work. And so we originally met through a mutual friend.
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw each other after a year and a half at at a wedding of all
Mm-hmm.
things. And he broke up with me because he said he didn't want to get married. And we saw each other. And actually, like when I saw him, I walked up to him and I said, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I have no hard feelings against you. Like, I'll always be really grateful for the time we had together. I kind of like closed the door. Like, it was like such a powerful, like, closure thing for me to be like, thank you for like, and I said, like, I'm sorry for not like accepting you for who you are because I was trying to get him to change so he would want to
Mm-hmm.
marry me. So about 3 weeks later, I got an email from him asking if he would go to coffee, if I could go to coffee with him. And he ended up like telling me this whole process that he had gone through.
Wow.
So we ended up getting back together, which is
Mm-hmm.
like crazy. But what the super interesting thing is, we were both very different people from when we broke up. So I had done all this work, like, and so we had some adjusting to do of like things. He would be like, wow, this was never an issue for you before. And I was like, it was an issue. I just didn't know how to say it.
Right.
I didn't feel confident to speak my needs, to ask for what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So we did have to go through this like adjustment period.
Ah.
But what I had to learn, and even before we got back together, when I was started dating, I would literally ask on like the second or third date, I would say, hey, don't mean this to be weird, but like, do you see marriage and kids in your future? Not necessarily with me, but like,
Right.
is this something you see in your future? And if they said no, it was like, okay, like
Right.
I learned how to have like uncomfortable conversations. And I got to a point where if someone was going to break one of my like non-negotiables, like
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn how to walk away, because I think that's the thing with boundaries that's hard for people. It's not
Mm-hmm.
easy to set boundaries. It's easier to set boundaries. It's hard to uphold them. So
Yes.
if you say like, hey, I'm not okay with this, and then if
Mm-hmm.
someone continues that action, you have to say like, okay, I told you I'm not okay with it. So if you're going to keep doing this, then I have to like step away.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, I mean, it's really just like you have to have faith that the right person is out there, because I truly believe like there's is someone for everyone. But
Mm-hmm.
you do have to like stand in, like, I love that term, stand in your power. You have to stand in your power enough to
Mm-hmm.
know that if someone's going to do something that's not okay, I'm going to walk away.
Right. Right. And I, I, all of it just fascinates me because, like the person I was when I got married, fast forward to the person I was when I got divorced, fast forward to the person I am now, it's such a just a wringing out of you kind of of your whole, my one counselor said it's like the world gave you an opportunity to shake everything out, and now you get to decide what you pick up. So like you were saying with your clothes, going through your closet, like I had so many things where I was like, oh, I get to decide what I'm about. And like I remember being like, I'm about recycling.
Yeah.
I'm gonna recycle. And then I was like, I'm about saving the bees, god damn it. I'm gonna get some bee stuff out here. And like
Yeah.
it was so funny going through that. And there have been different periods of time that, like, even though I'm with a partner, people will say, oh, you're with a partner, you're so lucky. But for me personally, will sometimes like force myself to be like, wait a second, what are you about? And are you upholding this? Or are you like kind of getting, for me, I tend to be a little codependent. I get a little bit comfortable, you know? And so it's really affirming to hear someone say like, you know, to check in with these things, because when you're with someone, now you said that breakup was 5 years ago, you met him like a year and a half after that. Now you guys have been married. So you've been together for a while. As humans, we're constantly changing and evolving. So I feel like you probably have to keep checking in with what are your negotiables and non-negotiables, so
Yeah.
that you can stay healthy in a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like learning how to grow with your partner and then learning how to grow without your partner in certain areas. And, you know, I have just learned so much about like staying in my own lane. And I mean, there's just so many things that I've had to learn about relationships now that I, you know, am in a very long-term relationship. So, but again, it like comes down to like, who am I? What do I like? Like, even I'll catch myself sometimes, like if I like, I'm like, I want to try something. My husband's like, I don't want to try that. I'm like, do I want to like now?
Right.
Do I want to try that? Like,
Right.
is it stupid? Or, you know,
Right.
like just learning how to be okay with like just doing things differently. Like,
Yes.
this is a great example. So in my past relationships, I was codependent to the point where I was terrified to go on a trip without my partner. Like, terrified. I thought they were going to cheat on me, they were going to leave me, like every thought. So
Right.
I would not like I would do everything in my power to like not have to go on trips without a boyfriend.
Right.
And I had this moment, it was almost about a year ago. I went on like a 10-day trip to Europe with my mom, and like, you know, with time zones, like I barely got to talk to my husband. And I was like, I just remember thinking like, wow, this is crazy that I'm able to do this. Like,
Right.
I feel so secure with myself. And then the reason I feel secure with my relationship is not necessarily because like, you know, he like shows he's very trustworthy.
Right.
Like, you know, he's never done anything like that, but it's because I feel really secure with myself. And I tell people like my like closing thing in the course is like the power of going through a breakup in a way that's like really intentional, where it's a positive experience. I know that even if something were to happen to me and my husband and I, like I would 100% be okay, because I know how to go through a breakup. Like I know that like I can turn it into as positive as an experience as I can. Yes, every breakup is so painful and there are really painful things that happen in life, but like I know how to do it, and I know that, so that because of that I feel really secure with
so
myself
cool.
and in the relationship.
That's so cool. I think that can resonate with so many people. Even like I was saying, and like I try to tell people when they go to follow you or listen, is that it's like so many of those things are so true with so many different things that you're like separating in life, or when things are, you know, when you're trying to come out the other side. One thing I'm really interested about is how has your family handled the shift? Because for me, the most painful things that have kind of come forward, or like you said, everyone has painful stuff that happens in their life. But for me, it's really been relationships ending. And so it's been, fully honest, very challenging for like my dad, especially, to be able to manage like, oh, Lori's kind of changing how she interacts and orbits, because I find that with this work that you're talking about is it's not just your like, oh, this is a partner relationship. It could be friendship. I've had friendships that have changed as a result. I've had all this other stuff. So I always find families interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, how does your family kind of handle that shift in you? And
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a really good question. And I have a pretty large family. I have three older half brothers
oh, wow.
who are like significantly older than me. So I
Yeah.
have three, and then three sister-in-laws, and
Mhm.
then two nephews and four nieces. So we have like
Wow.
a pretty large family.
Hmm.
So it's been interesting. I'd say it's definitely strengthened certain relationships in my family, and then it's challenged others because I had always played a certain role in the family where I was like always the one to like stop whatever I was doing and like go help or like fix or something. Like I was just always this like role where I would, take other things on. Not even because people were telling me to take things on. I just like decided that I wanted to like take it on. So it's definitely been an adjustment, and I can see certain family dynamics strengthening and then some getting harder. Like with my mom is a great example. Like I ended up having her come to a therapy session with me,
Hmm.
and because I had to like lay certain things out, and I got to a place where like I got to tell her how I was feeling about certain things, and like so we've been able to like actively work on that together, which is
Hmm.
so beautiful that like one, I have someone that is totally like open to hearing that.
Hmm.
And so yeah, so but some I've had to be like, okay, we might have a season where we're not as close because
Hmm.
we're both like kind of adjusting. And but I do really have faith that like we're gonna come back together in a new way. So I
Right.
think you just have to be okay with like you're not always gonna have the same role. And I think that's
Right.
with friends too, is like you'll probably have seasons where you're feeling like you're drifting from people, and then you're gonna come, if you're meant to, you're gonna,
Yes.
especially family, it's like family's family, but you're gonna come back together just in a new way.
Right. Right. I love that. Thank you for speaking to that and
Yeah.
sharing some personal stuff. I know I didn't send any of my questions to you in advance,
No,
but
I
I'm
love it.
always so amazed when I see individuals who I kind of see as like powerhouses and who are owning their space and making waves, but in a way that's not like mean to anyone else and all of that. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do. And so selfishly, that's one of the reasons why I started wanting to do some of these talks, because it's like so incredible to me to see women holding space, being positive, not being disparaging to other people. But it's interesting to have that within yourself and then go with family who, have known you in a certain way all of the time. Like being a physical therapist, my dad was telling me that he was limping. And I'm like, you do realize, like, I am a physical therapist. I can help you with this. And he just like, would not like I was speaking another language and I'm like, Roy, what are you doing? So it's very interesting.
Yeah, and even like just one specific example, like I was always the like happy-go-lucky person. Like I definitely was not always the person that was really vulnerable about how I was doing, especially
Mhm.
with my family. So once I started becoming okay with like showing how I was feeling, not necessarily like interrupting something and be like, I'm upset, but just
Mhm.
like if I wasn't feeling like up for like really bubbly conversation, like I wouldn't, and I would take a step back and like stay kind of quiet in the conversation.
Mhm.
And the first couple times that happened, like people automatically assumed I was upset at one of them. Like they thought something was seriously wrong with me. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm just learning how to get to know my feelings a little bit better.
Mhm.
So that was like one specific adjustment that we had to make is like just because I'm not like the most talkative one in the room, like sometimes
Mhm.
I just need to be quiet.
Right.
Yeah.
So back to your fashion now.
Yeah.
How did you discover that amazing style? People, I cannot tell you. So I want to make sure people can find you at your breakup bestie on Instagram, which I have tagged the wazoos out of you, but also your website is breakupbestie.com. And then your podcast is Heal Your Heartbreak Podcast with your breakup bestie. And your website is like on point. And so, yeah. So how did you like find your personal style? Partially because like, I mean, if you had a Shopify page, I'd probably click on it.
Thank you. That's really sweet. It's so interesting because it's been such, again, like such a journey with like my self-worth of like learning. I kept doing this thing where like every time I would clean my closet, I would throw stuff out that I didn't even wear. And I'm like, why did I buy this? It was really just like learning like what I'm comfortable. Wait, we're back. Okay.
Oh, yes. What you're comfortable in.
Like we've had such good luck so far.
And I was like, ah.
Yeah. So learning what I'm comfortable in, and like I'm not a high heel girl ever. Like I've just never been, but I like would fake it and wear it for so long. So I think just learning like what I feel really comfortable in, and then specifically with Breakup Bestie, like I'm actually surprised I'm not wearing pink or red. That's like been my like thing of Breakup Bestie, and that's been like a whole thing exploring my brand. As I think for a little while I was trying to be everything to everyone, where like, you know, I didn't want to like commit to this like pink and red kind of a thing. So I'm like, I don't want anyone to feel excluded. But at the end of the day, I was like, I always tell people like, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a relationship counselor. Like all I'm doing is speaking from my own experience. And so from my own experience, like I'm a woman, like I mainly talk, you know, it's like, that's how I know how to speak. So I'm like, I think it's okay that I'm not everything to everyone in the future. Like maybe, and I'm always like so pleasantly surprised how many men reach out to me for like help with their breakup. I think that's really encouraging.
Yeah.
But yeah, just being like, this is how, like, what do I feel like really powerful in when I am like being your breakup bestie? It's like, I like being in pink and red, and I like to help women like own their power in relationships.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it really like, it's so funny. Like everything comes down to like my self-worth. Like, what do I feel comfortable in? What do I feel powerful in? What do I feel like myself in? Cause I used to step out to go to dinner in like a dress and heels. And I'm like, I don't feel good. Like, I don't feel like myself at all. So, so yeah.
I have like a solid hatred for heels. Like it started because I used to wear heels. Oh God. And my boyfriend was even kind of giving me a hard time early on in our relationship. And he's like, why don't you want to wear heels? And like, I would see someone walking in heels, and like inside my heart, I would be like, I feel so bad for you. And my feet hurt.
Yeah.
And like, they hurt even though I'm not wearing the heels. And I just like, I despise heels. And so, and I have like gotten rid of my heels, and like, I still wear stuff and I'm just like, bam, I'm popping, I'm banging, and there's no heels.
I know.
But it's amazing.
I'm like such a tennis shoes girl through and through. I literally wore Converse on my wedding day. I had yes. So yeah. And like, this is such a side note, but kind of a funny story. But when I was like obsessed with getting engaged and getting married, and I'm very competitive, I was at my best friend's wedding in high heels in the bridesmaid dress, and I broke my ankle jumping for the bouquet in heels. So ever since then, I'm like, okay, that settles it. Like, we're not gonna wear those anymore.
We're not gonna wear those anymore.
Yeah.
So I love the things that you're saying. There are so many, like, I feel like I could grab like quotes from this to make like Instagram slides where you say things like, you know, knowing your self-worth, like, asking yourself, what are your likes? All of these things that are such pearls of knowledge, whether it's figuring out, like you said, what you want to wear, how you want to show up in your business, which is so huge and interesting to be able to have that vision. And I mean, to grow this business, to grow where you're at over 2 years is incredible. Because everyone, when I said I was going out on my own business, they're like, just so you know, 3 to 5 years. it's going to be 3 to 5 years. And I'm like, okay, like I get that. And they're like, so I hope, you know, like I thought you liked to travel. So you're like not going to be able to travel for like 3 to 5 years, FYI. And I'm just like, what? Are you trying to do this to scare me? I'm not
Yeah.
making you leave your job. I'm leaving my job, you know? And so, and I've had people, so since I've been really focusing on this for 6 months, they've been like, well, where's the content for this? Where's the content for this? I'm like, damn, it's only been 6 months. Like, it takes some time to develop it. So
Yeah.
I really love hearing how you've like developed, obviously as a woman going through this, as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, as a business person, to be able to have all these rich offerings.
Thank you. I mean, it's definitely been like, I remember, I think I was talking to my husband like last summer, and we were just talking about like, and he's like, where's the course? And I'm like, it was out of fear. Like, honestly, it was, there's so much. I think it's so vulnerable, like being an entrepreneur, like just putting yourself out there, like, hey, this is what I'm offering. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like banking my whole career on it. So,
Yes.
so there's just been so much fear. And I remember like even being really nervous because when I launched my blog 6 months after launching the Instagram, I was like, I have to tell people that I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So literally I would like go to friends and be like, it was almost like I was like, I was like, hey, like I'm starting this like breakup thing. And then my husband would like, he's so cute. He would like tell people what I do. And I'm like, shh, shh, like, don't
Right.
like, please, like, don't tell people what I do. What
Right.
I do. Like, it was just so embarrassing. For me, just out of fear. But then when I was like, started owning it and I'm like, hey, yeah, I own a company called BreakUpBestie. And it's like, people are like, oh, that's so cool, you
Mm-hmm.
know? But you know, it has been like a long journey. And even like full disclosure with my course, I just thought like you make a course, you like turn it on and then just people like come and buy it. It's like, no,
Yes.
it's not as easy as that. But I'm so glad I did not know that it wasn't that easy before I started. Because
I know.
I don't
Oh
know if I
my
would have done
God.
it.
Yes, I did my first workshop, and like this lady that was helping me with email marketing is like, I want you to do a practice workshop and I want you to ask your friends. And I was like, can I just ask strangers on the
Yeah.
street to show up instead of my friends? So my
Yeah.
like friends showed up, they gave me really kind feedback, and then like I instituted their feedback, and the workshop was 150 times better. I also now know how to do a better presentation and be more engaging and like run on time for stuff. And it was like, I mean, earth shattering, but like also like I kind of wanted to die. And then the next day I like messaged the lady and I was like, when are we doing the next workshop? And she was like, calm down, breathe,
Yeah.
let's get feedback. And I
Yeah.
was like, I love this, I want to do this all the time. And but like before, it was like pulling teeth. I like finished the practice PowerPoint literally like 3 minutes before I was supposed to go live on with my friends. And like my team kept saying, like, where's your practice PowerPoint? And I'm like, my internet's down, you know,
Yeah.
like so like yes, 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 yes. And it's yes, it's so it's just I feel you, and it's very nice to see that someone can like come out the other side, whether it's coming out the other side of a breakup, coming out the other side of job changes, of entrepreneurship, all of that. I think it's so cool. And again, that's why I've felt so engaged with your platform, because it's like, oh my gosh, like this stuff is so applicable in so many ways because we're constantly changing and ebbing and
Yeah.
flowing.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I mean, granted, she is my mom, but my mom did my whole course like right before it came out. And she's
Yeah.
like, I haven't gone through a break. My parents have been married they just celebrated 40 years. And so she's like, I haven't been through a breakup in like 50 years, but like I still really liked it. And
Yeah.
coming from my mom is like always the one that tells me if my outfit's not cute. So she's like always the one that, but she's like, it's always applicable to like turn inward.
Right.
That's just the thing. It's like all it is like turning inward and, you know, kind of taking inventory of like where you're at, what's working, what's not.
Hmm.
So yeah.
I saw a question came in. How long were you and your husband together before the breakup, and then how long were you together? So that 5 years ago,
Yeah.
that breakup, how long were you guys together?
We were together a year and a half. But the first 9 months was literally him not committing to me at all. Like
Mhm.
this is like the prime example of not owning my worth. It ended
Okay.
up working out, but like so we were like friends with benefits. It's full
Mhm.
disclosure, we were total friends with benefits. He would come I would go to him and be like, "Hey, I'd like to like date because we're like
Yes.
basically dating. So like, can we date? Can like I have a title?"
Mhm.
And he would be like, "No, I'm not ready for that." And then I would like
Mhm.
go away for like a week and I'm like, "I'm done with you." And then literally like a week later I'd be like, "Hey, I'm back." And we would do like the friends with
Mhm.
benefits. So literally it was 9 months of like me chasing him around like that. And then
Mhm.
finally like we did end up becoming official. And then about a year after that, that's when he broke up with me. But literally the whole time he was like, "I don't know if I want to get married." Like he
Mhm.
was so honest the
Yeah.
entire time. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I either thought I was going to change him or thought like maybe I would like be okay not getting married, which
Right.
I've always wanted to get married.
Right.
So yeah, that it was like totally a prime example of like me not owning my worth. So
Right. Well, I know you have something. Let's see, your time is 4:30 to 5. I know you have something at 5:30. So we wanted to wrap it up a little
yeah.
bit earlier, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming on here. It is so amazing. You can find Kendra at your breakup bestie on Instagram, breakupbestie.com, and then also listen to her amazing podcast, Heal Your Heartbreak Podcast with your breakup bestie. I would love to have you on again because
Yes.
I just think you are such a wealth of knowledge and
Thank you.
you're so enjoyable. And thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you. And I totally, so this was actually my very first Instagram live. So you took
Whoop, whoop.
my IG live virginity.
You like, first of all, your takeover was incredible. And I
Thank
was
you.
like, I'm gonna like screen record this and then study it because you were just like, here are the points, here what I'm talking about, this is what I'm doing. And you had your little earbuds in the whole
Yeah.
time and you like looked cute. And I was like,
Thank you.
damn, I have done like 3 IG takeovers, but she was ready.
Thank you. Well, you know, it's because when I was working with Danica, like I like looked over
Yes.
like a full like 52 takeovers. So
I
I'm
can't
like
even imagine. And
picking. So it's
yeah,
a lot of learning from people that
yeah,
are really
but you
good.
like nailed it. And so
Thank
I
you.
was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And like I said, it's been so fun, like watching your Instagram grow and taking that information. And so I highly, highly recommend wherever people are in life to go follow her because she's got a lot of great info.
Thank you so much, Laura. This was so fun. That went by so
Yes.
fast.
I know it went so
Yeah.
fast. I know it
Yeah.
was amazing. And like, I want COVID to be over because I just want to like go hop and see all of these amazing
Yes.
people. Cause we've sort
Come
of
to
oddly
California.
talked like on and off through like email. And I'm always like, oh, I'm just going to message Kendra. Like
Yeah.
Kendra will know. And
Yeah.
so apparently like I just like through your Instagram have like stalked you. And now someone was, I think someone was trying to message you and I'm like, well, she's moving. So
Oh.
that's probably why she wasn't available. She's been moving. Like as if
Yeah.
I like, and they're like, oh, she told you that. And I was like, no, I
No.
saw it on Instagram. Like, so
I love that.
yes.
Literally, that's my whole life. I'm like, how was your vacation? They're like, I'm like, your Instagram.
I know, like, I'm
Yeah.
not tracking you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, have a wonderful
Thank
night and I will
you.
talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Yep.
Bye. We'll talk soon.
Bye.